You once played a concert in the nude, didn't you?
What?
You once played without any clothes on.
Unfortunately, that happened to me.
Tell me how.
Oh, that's a few years ago. How you know that story? It was terribly surprising. But you know those rich people, they don't care, they want you. Well, I was quite impressed by the money he offered me, and I said I will do what I can. We went to the house, a super mansion near Cannes, Mougins, I think it was. The man, he said, no, you get through the kitchen, because we don't want the guests to see you. So we went, 6 of us, go to the kitchen, and I saw the cook, I said, well, they're all dressed. Well, they are not nude, those people. He said, oh, don't worry, that's the kitchen staff. Don't worry about them.
You thought you were going to play for nudists?
No, but the guests are nude.
The guests are nude.
Yeah. So, well, to encourage us, he gave us some champagne, and after we get in form. We start to undress. Then we went to that little stage, the saloon, and he said, when you are ready, you start to play, and I will open the curtain. So we start to play, the curtain open, and everybody look at us like if we were monkey in the zoo. Because they were all in evening dress.
I should think the double bass player had the best of that.
I would like to ask a question to Yehudi.
Please do.
Is there anything like that happened to you with the London Symphony Orchestra?
Not yet.
I'm really quite moved to see this evocation of Grappelli in the flesh, with his smile, his gesture, his humor, his vivid presence. We all know, and every musician does, how music, its very function is to carry you into its own orbit, wherever it was, other places, other times, other people, composers. But here was the visual with it, and so I must tell you about my recollections. It was a year or two before I actually met Grappelli, thanks to the BBC, that I'd heard about him from a fan of his who had gone to Ronnie's Club during the war almost every night to hear him. She gave me his records. I was overwhelmed and told everyone about it, and it no doubt came to the BBC's notice, so that on Christmas morning, 71, I had this call from the BBC saying, you're going to play with Grappelli tonight. But it took me completely by surprise, and I knew, all the good sense in me knew, that I was unprepared. I'd never done jazz, I'd never improvised, I had been brought up in a different literate, as it were, tradition. But I couldn't resist the adventure. So I came at the appointed time, more nervous than I'd ever been. But he was so kind and warm, reassuring, and I let myself go to the security of the rhythm band and try to follow him as well as I could. But that was the first encounter, musical and personal, and that's what you will be seeing now.
I enjoyed that more than I can tell you.
Thank you.
I really did. Absolutely marvellous. It must have been, I don't know, about the 100th time I've heard you play that with records and things, and it still seems different every time you play it. Do you play it differently every time?
Well, I suppose I do. I change sometime. I played that tune for 45 years.
That's a long time. Anyway, Stéphane, let's bring on somebody else who's in his field, a magnificent musician. Ladies and gentlemen, Yehudi Menuhin. Did you enjoy that?
Oh, I loved it. He plays absolutely wonderfully.
What did you particularly like about
I
it?
love to
Mr.
see
Menuhin?
the violin. I've always loved this instrument, but I like to see it in every kind of situation, Indian situation, gypsy, and of course jazz. And I like to think that the violin, the jazz violin, has come out of Europe, has come out of perhaps out of Eastern Europe, out of some of your gypsy original link with the gypsy world.
When did you first become aware of the existence of Stéphane Grappelli?
About 10 years ago, when a friend of mine gave me some records of Stéphane Grappelli. I had never heard a jazz fiddle before, and I was completely overwhelmed with his extraordinary facility, technique, imagination, fantasy, rhythm, and this is the first time we've met. I've been looking forward to this for 10 years.
With you, it's a great compliment for me. Thank you very much.
Stéphane, when did you first, in fact, come across Mr. Menuhin's work?
Well, I know Mr. Menuhin when he was very young. The first time I saw him, he was about 15 or 16, when he was the most talented young violinist. I saw him and I heard him in the Salle Pleyel in Paris, quite a long time ago, I'm afraid. He was very young.
Yes. Did you have any ambition yourself at that time to be a classical violinist?
Well, as a matter of fact, I was playing for my amusement, or my father obliged me to play. But I decided to make a profession of it when I was about 15, when I heard some jazz record at the time.
Yes.
And when the first jazz record I heard, Mitchell Band and all those colored orchestra.
Yes.
And I was so impressed, and I said, "Oh, I like that music so much." And but if it was not for that, I would never be a musician.
But you trained first of all as a dancer, didn't you?
Well, during the war in 1914, my father was a widow, and he put me in a school of dance of Isadora Duncan, but I was not
Isadora
born.
Duncan?
Yes, but I was not really fit for that.
But you dance on your fiddle now.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yes.
So what was she like, Isadora Duncan?
Oh, she was very pleasant. We often see her on bed. She used to...
In bed?
Yes, like the Roman people used to do, and watch, direct the school.
Yes, yes.
But it's a matter of fact, it's the first time I hear some great music there. For instance, I was about 6 or 7 years old when I heard the Après-midi d'un faune of Debussy, conducted by Colonne.
Really?
Yes, Edward Colonne, yes, I heard that.
What's...
Made a tremendous impression on you.
Of course.
Yes.
How did you come to create this style of yours, Stéphane? There aren't many jazz violinists around. You
Yes,
hardly
there
had
is some.
Well, very few. You hardly had a precedent, did you? You hardly had anybody you could look at and say, I'm going to be like him, you know?
Well, it came like that. I was not inspired by any violinist.
No.
I was more or less inspired by the Armstrong.
Yes.
When I was very young, I heard some musician like that, some saxophonist of that time, and I make up a little soup of all that.
You did, in fact, Yehudi, there was mentioned the gypsy. Of course, you played with a very famous gypsy musician, didn't you? Django Reinhardt.
Yes, and he was a self-made man himself.
Mm.
He couldn't write and read a note of music.
Really?
Yes.
That's almost a precondition of the improviser.
Yes.
And he has such a sense of harmonic. I think he was a kind of born classic musician.
Yes. Yes.
I don't think he apart he played jazz music, of course, but apart that, he was never doing any harmonic thought, like some instructed people does.
If it's true, as you said there, that the person who's not been schooled in music makes the natural improviser,
I know.
is the reverse the true?
Well, the reverse is certainly a great danger.
Yes.
Because very often by learning to read even words, we see the misuse of literacy all around us. The loss of instinct, the loss of subtlety, of reaction, the crudeness that comes from the conception that a symbol must mean just one thing, and certain words are key words which lock everything that is spontaneous and natural out of the context of the phrase. And the same applies in music. I know that ever since I've played, I started in the classical way, learning to read music, but it has always been my dream to have some sort of contact, some physical touch with the world of improvisation. And that is why I was so attracted to Ravi Shankar, and now to Mr. Grappelli. Along with 7 or 8 others, the most beautiful Stradivarius in the world.
That looks very much like that violin.
Yes, but that's a beautiful violin too. It's the same period. That's 1695.
1695.
95, Kappa.
He was a pupil, like Stradivarius, to the master
of Amati. But even so, they're vastly different in appearance, as much as 2 people would be different. I mean, you'd recognize your wife. I can recognize the violin and my wife.
But Vatlo said, you know Vatlo in Paris? He showed me a book, and he said Paganini preferred Kappa than Stradivari.
Really?
I read that. He showed me in one of those
Well, it
books.
could very well be, because each violin has its own character, and he might have found a Kappa so much to his liking they never found a Strad.
Yes.
It's very...
Where did you get that violin,
I paid for it.
You paid for it?
You didn't see it.
I don't think you found it. I wondered if you searched for a violin like that, or whether you just happened to come across it somewhere.
Well, I was fed up to play in a very poor violin all my life. So I managed to get a good violin now.
How much do you practice on that violin each day?
Oh, I never practice.
You never practice it? Why is that?
I'm sorry.
Because he plays, you see, he doesn't have to play works written by other people. He doesn't have to learn them. He has it all inside of him. And every time he touches the violin, he plays something which is his own and beautiful. And his technique is especially suited to express himself. It's an entirely different approach than the violinist who is studying the 24 Caprices of Paganini.
We're going to do a piece, in fact, featuring you, Stéphane, on piano, an electric piano.
Yeah.
And this is an instrument, of course, that you learnt, as you said, at a very early age. Well, not the electric piano, but you learnt piano first of all, didn't you?
Well, it was my first instrument,
Yes.
really.
Yes.
And I played the violin because I met Django Reinhardt in Paris. I was playing a little bit the violin, but in my own way. So he was quite interested, and more and more I played. But my first instrument was the piano, and I was make a living with it.
Yes. All right.
Well, I'm very proud of this piece because Stéphane wrote it for me, and...
Yes, well, I'll tell the audience what it's all about if you'll sort of wander over there and
Okay.
take your positions. Thank you very much indeed. This is, in fact, something of an event, as it's the first time that Stéphane's ever played the piano on television. It's an electric piano, in fact. Menuhin, poor Menuhin. that was beautiful. Very beautiful.
For his birthday,
For his birthday?
next May.
Uh-huh.
You must write another one by then.
One thing I noticed there, you even though you didn't play violin, you took it with you.
Well, maybe somebody can sit on it.
You mentioned before you went up to play that piece that you mentioned Django Reinhardt,
Yeah.
who you together, created one of the most famous European jazz bands there's ever been, I suppose, the Quintette of the Hot Club of France.
Sure.
What kind of man was he, Stéphane?
Well, it was very complex, very difficult. It was impossible sometimes. And because his strength was because he was never there. And that makes you feel so uncomfortable. The first night we'd been booked at the Palladium of London in 1938, he was not there. And we found him outside looking at his name. It was the first time he saw his name on the top of the theater. So that affected him so much. He stayed there. He was very childish. He was a very strong man, but very child. But I've got the opportunity to, I want to tenir,
To
hold
nail him down, to nail him down.
Because I was 2 years older than him. And in the gypsy world, when you are older, you are the master. So I was like that, and he was like that, but I managed to get him back to the theater. What are you doing here? Come on to play. And sometimes Django decide to go fish. He used to like to fish a lot. He used to go and disappear for 2 months without playing at all. So we find him somewhere, or he come back when he was absolutely penniless, and immediately start to play exactly if he was playing 5 minutes before.
Wonderful.
Extraordinary. And he again, I want to assume, was self-taught.
But
He was
of course,
self-taught, yes.
He couldn't write his name even that.
Yes.
I teach him to write his name.
Really?
Oh, it was
Is
so
that an
difficult.
advantage?
No. Yes, it was an advantage because he was proud to sign the contract.
Right.
Because one very celebrated man here, Lou Grade, came to see us in 1938 in Paris with a contract. He wanted us to coming to play in the Palladium of London. So I know Django couldn't read at all, but he told me, let me look at it, because I look stupid if you always do yourself. So why not? Alors, I show him the contract. Was in, luckily it was in French for me, because I was not so good in English that now, you know. But he read the contract, and he said, oh, I don't like that clause. So we all go to see the clause. He said, voyage payé en première classe.
He was objecting to the first class, was he? Now, can I ask both of you the same question? Because it occurs to me you both work very, very hard. You're both incessantly on the move and working in different places. How fit do you have to be a touring musician like you are? Do you train? Do you do physical jerks or anything like that?
Oh, no.
No?
I think once a week, a little swig of whiskey is all you need.
No,
No?
just before the concert.
Just for the concert. Well, that's something I'd never dare.
Yes, you kindly offered me a tisane, and I don't like it.
I have rosehip tea,
Yes.
which has no alcohol in it at all.
Yes.
But I wouldn't be able to do that. There are violinists who can, in fact, who need, like
Well, I need a
Stéphane.
little drop before
Yes.
I go on the stage there.
Really?
Yeah.
You had one tonight?
Two.
Stéphane, you once played a concert in the nude, didn't you?
What?
You once played without any clothes on.
Unfortunately, that happened to me.
Tell me how.
Oh, that's a few years ago. How you know that story?
Because the last time you were on my program, afterwards, when we were having a drink in the bar, you told me.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, it's a bit... do you think they would
Of
like
course, yeah, they'd love to hear you, yes.
it? Well, as a matter of fact, I was better looking than now. Well, I was in Cannes, my hometown. I was playing the piano in a club. The man come to see me and said, I've got a very good evening for you to do. I was young and I liked to make the money. He said to me, yes, but there is something peculiar about that evening. I said, well, tell me. He said, you and your band, you must play completely nude. So I said, well, I was quite surprised, you see, because at that time it was not like today. It was no bikini. We used to go to the sea with the coat there. It was terribly surprising. But you know, those rich people, they don't care. They want you. Well, I was quite impressed by the money he offered me, and I said I will do what I can. So he said, yes, but I don't want those people to play with you. They are too old. I want people young like you. So, well, I said I will find somebody. I don't know if I can find them, but I'll let you know in a few days. So it was no much telephone. I have no telephone at the time, so I must go to Nice, to that. I know some young friend of mine, and they said, well, it's a bit funny, but why not? We sleep all nude, why don't we play all nude? So I managed to get a band. And the evening arrived, we went to the house, a super mansion near Cannes, Mougins, I think it was. The man, he said, no, you get through the kitchen, because we don't want the guests to see you. So we went, 6 of us, go to the kitchen, and I saw the cook. I said, well, they're all dressed. Well, they are not nude, those people. He said, oh, don't worry, that's the kitchen staff. Don't worry about them.
You thought you were going to play for nudists?
No, but the guests are nude. The guests are nude.
Yeah.
So, well, to encourage us, he gave us some champagne and other. We get in form. We start to undress. Then we went to that little stage, the saloon, and he said, when you are ready, you start to play, and I will open the curtain. So we start to play, the curtain open, and everybody look at us like if we were monkey in the zoo. Because they were all in evening dress.
And you stayed there, you played out the set, did you?
Well, we do anything for money, you know.
I should think the double bass player had the best
I
of
would
that.
like to ask a question to Yehudi.
Please do.
Is there anything like that happened to you with the London Symphony Orchestra?
Not yet.
The last time, in fact, you were on my program, you Yehudi played jazz. Now we're turning the tables tonight, aren't we? Because Stéphane's going to play a classical piece.
Yes.
Could you explain what it is and why it's particularly right for...
It's George Malcolm who chose this piece, and Handel particularly belonged to that period that we were speaking of before, and I had recorded the 6 sonatas of Handel with George, and I was at that time quite surprised to learn that this movement that goes, which I always played quite straight, was actually in the style of the period demanded what they call not inégal, which is of course a very jazzy thing. And the idea was that to see what Stéphane would make of a piece of Handel if he were given the green light and said, now, go ahead, treat it your way, which wouldn't be so very far different. I mean, there may be 1 or 2 people listening who might be quite surprised or even aghast, but it isn't as far off the beam as people had imagined
No,
it was.
no. Fine.
So-
All right, then. Well, then, so Yehudi Menuhin and Stéphane Grappelli joined George Malcolm to play part of a Handel trio sonata for 2 violins and harpsichord.
We have to wait for
I'm delighted to see George Malcolm again. I hadn't expected to. He died only a few months ago, a very great harpsichord player, one of my closest friends and associates. Like all very great harpsichord players, gifted in jazz because they inherit the tradition from the Middle Ages when they had to improvise counterpoint, melody, and the decorations, the embellishments of the music. So they are the natural jazz players of our day. But when I come to Grappelli, it is a character of such gentleness, of such tenderness, of such warmth and humanity that I always think of. He emanated something of goodness. I don't think he was ever preoccupied with an evil thought. I don't think he knew them. He was just himself, always ready to pick up his violin and play. He never had to practice. Of course, I was a little bit envious there, but that was his gift. Whenever he played, he improvised according to the moment. And he lived according to the moment, and that moment was always a sympathetic one. I don't think another person has brought as much joy to so many, many people as Grappelli has, and he's left that joy with me. I was privileged, thanks to him, to participate in his 80th birthday celebrations at the Barbican.
Well, after that came a dramatic moment in the concert.
Hey, is my friend Yehudi somewhere? Ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, Sir Yehudi Menuhin, who was brought together with Stéphane on a Michael Parkinson show 17 years ago. Since then, they've recorded many albums, but this is the first time they've appeared together live on stage in Europe. Two old friends bridging the gap between classical and jazz.
Some peeps say that you can't read the music.